Find out what's making you sick and how to heal. Anthony William is the medical medium.
Hello, this is Anthony William. You're listening to the Medical Medium Radio Show, where each week you hear the most advanced healing information that's decades ahead of what's out there now. If we think science and research knows everything about chronic illness, we're actually blinded by something. And I don't know what that is exactly, besides maybe trust in the medical system. And maybe that happens when we've never been sick. We're not struggling. We're not suffering. We haven't gone to 10 neurologists. I mean, I've talked to people over the years that have come to me over the years, I mean, decades ago, that have gone to 5 or 8 or 9 or 10 different neurologists looking for answers about their different symptoms. 250 million Americans alone in the U.S. don't have answers for symptoms they're dealing with. And if they have an answer, it doesn't mean it goes away. And that's what we're up against right now. So when you think about it, you guys, does science and research know everything about chronic illness? They don't. Why would we ever think so at this point? And you know what? Everything is blamed on us, from genes and also our bodies attacking themselves. We're told it's faulty. You know, our bodies are faulty, our bodies are problematic. And this is a prime example of how the industry is, because what science and research does is it protects itself before it protects people. That's how it works. Now, not in every single field, but in chronic illness. I'm not talking about making parts, you know, making nuts and bolts, you know, that are put together. So we have braces for our legs, and we have different kinds of pieces of basically medical equipment we need in all kinds of different areas that science is working hard to try to perfect so we can live a better quality of life while we're sick. I'm talking about everyday aches and pains, the tingles and numbness, the vertigo, the dizziness, the balance issues, the headaches, the migraines, the anxiety, the depression. I mean, everything, neck pain, back pain, sciatica, from everything from plantar fasciitis to bladder infections, constant chronic UTIs, sinus infections that never go away, to fungus on the skin, to eczema and psoriasis, to dermatitis, to lichen sclerosis and vitiligo, to all kinds of what's deemed autoimmune diseases like Lyme disease and rheumatoid arthritis and Hashimoto's thyroiditis. To all these things, we are in a bad place, and it hasn't gotten better. And yeah, the world has gotten rid of processed foods. Not the whole world. A lot of people are getting rid of processed foods. They're eating now cleaner high-fat diets versus the dirtier high-fat diets. So instead of people getting fried grease with their bread and, you know, their bread and butter, they're off their bread. A lot of people are off their bread, and they're off the fried grease, and instead they're eating, you know, like healthier grease. So they're eating their oils, and they're eating their nut butters and all that, and that's actually healthier stuff. But the keto diets and the keto way of thinking, whether you're paleo, whether you're paleo keto, whether you're high protein keto, whether you're plant-based keto, still isn't fixing everybody. It helps people with mild symptoms who have been on all the different diets. I mean, they actually have, you know, it's helped people with milder symptoms who've eaten all not so great and don't take care of themselves, and they seem to be okay. But anybody else chronically ill with real problems, the higher fat diets hasn't been helping. And I'm going to talk about why, because today's show is about toxic heavy metals and how the relationship of the higher fat diets that we're on, whether they're clean and healthier ones right now, okay, how this doesn't work with toxic heavy metals, and how toxic heavy metals are responsible for all the brain fog, the Alzheimer's, the Parkinson's, the anxiety, the depression, the memory issues, the OCD, and that's just some of the things. And these toxic heavy metals, they feed pathogen illnesses that are not autoimmune. It's called fibromyalgia, CFS, MS, Lyme disease. These aren't autoimmune. These aren't the body attacking itself. There's real problems behind there. These are pathogens behind this. It has nothing to do with autoimmune. These are actually viruses and bacteria, reproductive system problems, eczema and psoriasis, PCOS, and so much more. And in the Celery Juice book, I hope you guys have that Celery Juice book by now, because almost 200 symptoms and conditions in that book I talk about what the causes are, what causes it, and what to do for it. This is an important radio show. We're going to talk a little bit about the history on heavy metals, toxic heavy metals, where they come from, and where we're going. And you have to know, I love science and research. I love it. And here's the funny thing. Hardcore conventional science and research hates all the other science and research. So all the different things everybody's citing around, like science, science is behind that. Science is behind that study. Science is behind how the body works. Science is behind this about autoimmune or this and this and this. And no one realizes that those sciences that are all being created right now for even in alternative medicine are being thrown everywhere, like in different countries and in the United States and everything, that hardcore science, conventional science, doesn't back up any of it on any level. So everybody's throwing around different sciences around every single day, but we use the word as if everything's concrete and everybody's happy and the science world is all happy. The science world is at war with itself right now. Totally, completely at war with itself. They're literally battling each other. There's all kinds of different sciences now in alternative medicine, and someone's trying to prove the MTHFR gene mutation theory, which was a theory. That's all it was. There's no science to prove it. Till this day, there's not one single bit of science. Regular science in conventional world doesn't believe in the MTHFR gene mutation. They think that that's fake science. Isn't that incredible? And because it actually is skewed, by the way, but there's also hardcore conventional science that's skewed too, because it all is. There's a reason for that. In chronic illness, there's a reason for that. Agendas are behind every single study. They're behind it all. And guess what? All the things that make us sick are all avoided. Everybody just, has to stay sick because of the wars, because of the food war, because of the science war. Everybody's got to stay sick. That's how it works. The food war is like the high animal protein people against the vegans, against the plant-based. There's that war. And everybody's throwing their fake sciences back and forth. The paleo stuff, this is why paleo's better, this is why vegan is better, this is why vegetarian's better. It's all being thrown. Everybody's throwing their sciences back and forth while everybody else has to sit there and suffer and get sick with their toxic heavy metals. Why everybody has to sit there and stay sick and get sicker with their pathogens, their Epstein-Barr, their HHV6s, their different varieties of streptococcus, their shingles viruses, their herpes simplex 1s and 2s, all the mutations, all the different varieties. Everybody just has to sit around and get sicker and sicker and sicker, while the animal protein people are against the vegans are against the animal protein people. They're all throwing away bogus, they're all throwing at each other bogus fake science. And then at the same time, hardcore conventional science where Harvard stands behind it or whatever. They're throwing things. They're doing everything and throwing things at people too at the what they think is the alternative fake sciences. But they're all backed by money and funding to try to prove a point, whether it's true, accurate, not true, whether their thumb is on the scale. They're all in it together, and all these wars are going on. Why everybody just keeps on building heavy metals in their liver and in their brain, doesn't know how to get it out of them, doesn't even know the first thing to get it out of them, and they get all the different problems and neurological problems and all the different viral problems, and all the kids are getting sick now, teenagers, all the different young adults are getting sicker than ever before in history. We never saw this 30 years ago, and everybody's busy with their wars, their funded wars. Just think about that, you guys. They're busy with their funded wars. Isn't that interesting? Don't you think about it? Isn't that incredible? Where do I sit in the middle of it? I work for you guys. I work for God and I work for you guys. And look, you may not believe in God. You may believe in something else, that it's a big light in the sky, that it's the universe. Maybe you believe in gods. Maybe you believe in something else. Maybe you don't think it's a big man sitting in a chair with a beard. Maybe you think it's just this creator or this creator power or whatever you might believe. I'm just saying, whatever it is you believe, I work for that. I work for that. And I work for you. And that's what I do. And I hear the information from my source since I was 4 years old, so that it isn't tampered with, and the wars don't interfere with it. Exactly. And we're going to talk about heavy metals. And that's where we're going right now. So where did all these heavy metals come from that are inside our body, wreaking havoc? How could heavy metals be in your body? How can it be possible? First things first, medications. All medications have metals in them. All medications have metals in them. They end up in the liver. That's where they end up. Let's go to another one. Fluoride. Are we getting fluoride treatments? Did you have 10 of them? Did you have 5 of them? Did you have 1 of them? Did you have a whole bunch of them when you were younger? Fluoride. How about that one? What about our water? Because you got to remember fluoride. First of all, let's back into this a little bit so I can clarify. Medications have metals in them. Yes, they have copper in them. They have aluminum in them. They got all kinds of stuff, mercury in them. Medications have things in them. Bottom line, fluoride, that's aluminum. Someone said to me, and they're trying to debate me on this, and said, no, fluoride's not aluminum. It's a byproduct. I'm like, oh my God, can we be any more whatever you want to call that? I don't know what that is. When I get done talking to somebody like that, I say, you know what, they just don't know. And then in the back of my head, I'm like, how can they not know? So what is it? Are they just fighting for something just to prove themselves right or something? Fluoride, a byproduct, is methyl aluminum, no matter how you slice the cake. Look, none of us are all supposed to have the answers. I totally get that. We're all working hard together on the planet. That's not it. I'm talking about health professionals that deem themselves at the top of their game, and they want to debate me purposely because I hear a voice, and they don't like the fact that that's where it's coming from. And that's what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about all of us that, are just trying to find our way and get through everything. We're not supposed to know where metals are or where they come from or what they are. We're just not. We're too busy trying to survive. Think about that. Everybody's too busy trying to survive and live their life and to get through their day and work their job and try to get through and through what struggle and whatever emotional challenges we get. That's what's going on. I'm talking about professionals that are supposed to be on top of their game and think they are or say they are. And look, we're all learning. I told this professional, I said, look, if you don't know fluoride, in the end is a toxic heavy metal to the body, then why don't you learn about it? No big deal. And if you don't know about it, fine. But no, this person was hell bent, really, just to be like, no, it's not toxic to anybody. First of all, it's a neurotoxin. It's a neurotoxin. And it's nobody's fault. It's nobody's fault but the big industries. It's nobody's fault but the big industry. And so there's nobody to blame. There's nobody to blame on that level. I mean, they're the industries to blame. What about our water, too? It's a whole other thing. I mean, there's metals in our water. Absolutely. I mean, how many water guys have I talked to over the years that are like, any kind of apartment I've ever been in or any kind of different living situation, I always have a water guy come and just do a little test of my water. It's like, oh yeah, you're doing good. Something parts per million, lead, not sex, perfectly agreeable, EPA safe. And then you got, no, just very little traces of arsenic, totally in range of what we're allowed to have. I'm like, are you kidding me? And he was like, okay, yeah, that's our water standard. That's like our water standard. There's all that stuff is in our water. I mean, it really is. It's like, yeah, but it's not above what the EPA calls dangerous to us. What do you mean? Like, this stuff goes in the liver and builds up. And how much water are you drinking and not drinking? I'm sorry for giggling about this. I'm just saying that it's almost like so obvious that it hurts. It just does. And then our air. I mean, there's metals dropping out of the sky in abundance. I mean, I was talking to somebody in the spiritual movement, and they're like, yeah, I believe in abundance. This person was telling me, and I got a lot of respect for this person. They're like, I believe in abundance. It's all about an abundance. And they said, and they said to me, this person said to me, Anthony, like, what's your whole mantra? Like, what's your whole thing? And I'm like, well, I just know that there's an abundance of toxic heavy metals raining out of the sky. I know it's doom and gloom, but if I don't stay aware of it and teach others so we can get it out of our body, because it's going to be there, I want to get it out of everybody's body so they can heal, I can't. And, it was funny. And the spiritual guru was like, I never thought about that. They were like, I never thought about that. They were like, I'm always worried. I just always want abundance to come to me, That's what this person was saying. And I was like, look, that's amazing. But I just want the abundance of metals out of people's bodies. That's what I want. And that's what I live for. It's like, because that's how much we're up against. Aluminum cans. Have you consumed anything out of an aluminum can? Or aluminum foil? Have you eaten anything out of aluminum foil? I mean, right? I knew somebody that worked at a restaurant and said the aluminum foil they used was low grade. And I was like, low grade? That's right, low grade aluminum foil. And they said, yeah. And they said every time they would bake like a macaroni and cheese in the oven at this restaurant, they would put the foil over the top and they'd bake the macaroni and cheese and stuff like that. And then they'd remove the foil, and pieces of foil were just, they melted off of the foil into the macaroni and cheese. And so listen, I'm telling you all these things because we get exposed. And how many sticks of gum has everybody been eating all these years? The foil in there. It's really incredible. What about pots and pans? It's like even the stainless steel pots and pans that we deal with in the restaurants. I've seen pots scrape to the bone. So a friend of mine years ago at a restaurant, people were just scraping the pots with metal utensils. Where do you think all those metal shavings went? They went in somebody's meal. And they went in lots of meals. I mean, restaurants are like one of the most toxic heavy metal providing industries for everybody. And we fill a lifetime up in using, just fill a lifetime of eating out in restaurants. I'm not trying to keep you living in a box. I'm not trying to get you guys to just live in a little box and never experience the world. That's not what I'm trying to do. I just want to get the metals out of you faster than we're putting them in. How about that? I'm just going to repeat that. I know it's annoying. I'm probably annoying today, but the bottom line is I want to get the metals out of you faster than we're putting them in. That's the bottom line. And then let's keep on going a little bit long. I'm not even talking about old metal fillings. I'm not even talking about those silver fillings of the old days. I mean, how many times did the industry try to protect those metal fillings? How many times have they protected those metal fillings to the point where everybody's getting ceramic right now? But they stood by it. The industry stood by it because mercury was mandatory in the conventional standard to get into people. How do you like that? It's just unbelievable. We thought we were ahead of the game a long time ago with that one. And that's what I mean. Science and research proves itself as a bomb every time, every decade. It's always wrong, but we herald it as this unbelievable thing that's always right. I mean, come on. Are you sick of it yet? And then what about, and listen, think about the metal fillings and the mercury fillings, what we had to deal with and what people are still dealing with. That's not a problem that went away. I know people with plenty of metal fillings in their mouth. I mean, it's not like it's gone. Everybody's dealing with it. A lot of them have these little metal fillings and big metal fillings in today. Just plenty of them. Copper pipes. Yeah, copper pipes. Oh, maybe your house doesn't have copper pipes, old copper pipes. But maybe a friend's house did. And you stayed over and had a cup of tea 5 years ago. Yeah, cup of tea. It's unbelievable how easy it is to get all these metals in us. And that's just one thing. Pesticides, herbicides, fungicides. Have you eaten organic since you were born? Because pesticides, herbicides, fungicides are laden in copper. Toxic copper. Look, I can fill the whole show with all this fun stuff, this part right here. I really can. But let me go a little further back. Than this. Let's go into quicksilver. Quicksilver is a tonic from the 17 and 1800s that everybody drank when they went to the doctor. That's it. You wouldn't go to the doctor and leave without quicksilver. Quicksilver was mercury heated up in a tube with a flame, a candle underneath it, in water, till the mercury would kind of separate itself just enough and outgas into that fluid, into that liquid. And then they pour it into a little cup and you drink it. And that's what everybody did. Didn't matter what was wrong with you. You come in there, the conventional standard. The conventional standard was quicksilver. Bottom line, a mercury drink. And all your forefathers drank it. I don't care what anybody says. I'm going to tell you right now. I don't care what anybody says, because somebody said to me, there's no way my grandparents drank that, or my great-grandparents or their great-grandparents drank that. Not in my life. There's no way. Not in my family line. You're wrong. If they went, then they never went to a doctor once in their life during the 1800s. That's what it means. And I would say that. Okay, so that means that their whole lifetime, they never went to the doctor once, not even in their childhood, not even once for a fever back in the 1800s. because that's the only way they can avoid Quicksilver. So if you can guarantee that for me, then I will believe you. If you can't guarantee that, I'll never believe you. Never. Because everybody went to the doctor at least once and drank that tonic, children included. That's what was done. That was the standard of science and research. You know what happened? No one would see the doctors. The medical establishment was running out of money and collapsing down. The house of cards was falling by the mid 1800s. No one went to the doctor anymore. And I'll tell you why. Because the word quack was for the conventional doctor, not for the herbalist down the road, not for the chiropractor down the road that believes in some kind of energy medicine, not for the naturopathic doctor they have more respect now, not for anybody else, not for any kind of person, not for any kind of healer. Quack wasn't the word for any of them. Quack was the word for the conventional doctor, because by the mid-1850s, everybody thought that if you went to them and drank that tonic, you would come home with madness, insanity. So they called them the quack like a duck. You'd come home in an hysterical manner from the mercury, sometimes neurologically riddled in madness. And that's how you would come home. And that's why they deemed the conventional doctor the quack. But what happened was, it boomed a business that never was thought of as anything. It boomed the alternative market for the first time. That's why holistic medicine started. It exploded. Homeopathy, chiropractic, all of it. It exploded. Naturopathy, herbalism, it exploded. It came to life because it was where everybody went to by the turn of the century to stay away from the quacks. Isn't it interesting, right? Interesting. And then the quacks needed to take control, so they advertised they no longer used Quicksilver. There was a massive funding and medical back and funded campaign to save the conventional model, and it was a huge advertising campaign. By the late 1800s, we no longer use Quicksilver. Please come to us. We no longer use Quicksilver. Please come to us. That's what would happen. The only people the quacks would be servicing at that point were the people at the sanitariums, people that were already having problems with madness, even sane people that were just stuck in the sanitariums. And that's the only people the conventional doctor ever worked on anymore, because no one would go to the doctor. They would go to herbalists and everybody else. So just a little history, but here's the problem. We all have mercury in us because of it. We all have mercury passed down to generation to generation through your utero, all of it. That's how we have it. And we still do, and it's been building up. And we get mercury in other places too. So there's a little bit of history, just so you know. It's important. Metals are microscopic. They can't be seen. They're smaller than nanoscopic. They can't be seen. And what you don't see won't hurt. That's what the industry always thinks. We don't see it. You're fine. Mr. and Mrs. Jones, you guys are fine. We don't see it, so it can't be a problem. Toxic heavy metals are a particular type of toxin that celery juice's sodium cluster salts take on. So we're talking about celery juice too. Celery juice helps with toxic heavy metals. We're going to go into that a little bit. Heavy metals have a destructive active charge to them that causes the metals to be damaging to the liver cells, brain cells, and other cells throughout the body. Cluster salts, sodium cluster salts, diffuse this charge, rendering them inactive and less aggressive. Think about how powerful that is when you're drinking your celery juice, all the sodium cluster salts that are in celery juice that science and research doesn't know about yet. You think science and research knows everything? You think they know everything? They don't. It's so important to know that and understand that, because you're going to need different information, because this world's not easy to go in, and people already are suffering to a degree that's unbelievable, from young to old. So you need advanced information. And these sodium cluster salts, they diffuse the charge, rendering them inactive and less aggressive. They disarm toxic heavy metals such as copper, mercury, and aluminum. And there's other metals too. There's nickel, there's arsenic, There's a lot of different metals. It's cadmium and, barium. There's different metals. Celery juice's antioxidants is another thing that we need really desperately. One of the functions of the celery juice's antioxidants, not other antioxidants, is to remove fatty deposits from the heavy metal. Because this is what I was talking about earlier. We're on these high-fat diets. We're on high-fat diets all the time. And high-fat diets means we saturate our bodies with fats. That's how it works. Metals that sit and oxidize inside our body oxidize faster when our bloodstream is filled with fat. So we're all told to be on these high-fat diets right now. That's what we're told. All the vegans and plant-based people, they're just going all to high-fat. That's what they do. All of the, the high-protein people, paleo people, animal protein people, they all go to high-fat. And this is what everybody's doing. And they're all mixing it all up. They're all mixing it all up, the nut butters and everything else. All of that. Nut butters are healthy, but, in small quantities periodically because we need more other things that are more critical. So we're all heading to the keto land because it keeps you off of processed foods. It gets you exercising a little bit, gets a few pounds off the belly for a lot of people, not everybody, but for a lot of people when they first go on it after getting off the standard American diet. And so they're into the keto thing, and they think they found a holy grail. The health professionals today think the keto thing is the holy grail, but what it is, it's just no grains, it's no sugar, which is bad sugar because no one ever ate fruit anyway. So it's just bad sugar. Staying off of bad sugar, staying off of processed food, staying off of grease, staying off of high processed, greased, fatty, fast food, and go for the healthier fats. So that's what it means, and everybody does get a little bit better. That's why I don't even mind the keto diet to some degree, because if it'll keep somebody off the standard American diet and keep them from eating fried fast food, they're going to do better. But when we're chronically ill and we're suffering and struggling, we have symptoms that won't go away. That hasn't fixed anybody. That's not getting those real serious pathogen and toxic heavy metal symptoms to go away. In fact, it does the opposite. When we have the toxic heavy metals, the more fat we put into our body, the more they oxidize. The fats cling to the metals and cause them to rush and decay and oxidize. And that's what they do. And we faster deteriorate later. We age faster in the brain, we deteriorate later, and that's what happens. And those antioxidants in celery juice help to separate the fat deposits from the metal. They act like suction cups. See, here's how it works. Fatty deposits cling to toxic heavy metal deposits like suction cups. And when fatty deposits and toxic heavy metals touch like this, it causes the metals to oxidize. Byproduct of the metal develops discharge. That's what happens. A production occurs. Toxic heavy metals possess a destructive charge, which is part of what causes them to react to fatty deposits to begin with, and other toxic heavy metals aggressively. So that means if you have other toxic heavy metals, they mix with other metals, they oxidize, they discharge toxic charges. Essentially, we're talking about heavy metals rusting in the body, leading to corrosive runoff that is damaging to nearby tissue. Think about that. That's what happens. That's what happens. So, sure, if we're on a really toxic high-fat diet, which is the standard American diet, we get the Alzheimer's quicker, we get dementia quicker, we get memory problems quicker, we get all kinds of different issues quicker in the brain, we get crystallizations in the brain, we get calcifications in the brain, we get all kinds of different spots of the brain, we age, our brain shrinks. So taking people off the standard American diet and putting them on a healthy high-fat diet improves them and slows all that down. But by no means does it stop the process of the metals causing dementia, Alzheimer's, memory problems, crystallizations, calcifications in the brain. It doesn't stop any of this. Or liver issues or other toxic issues in the body like feeding viruses and making viruses get worse. Why do you think you got people on all kinds of diets? You got people on clean paleo diets, they're sick. They're sick with chronic fatigue. I thought the paleo diet would fix them, right? Wouldn't you think so? No. People on plant-based diets sick with chronic fatigue. Plant-based diet didn't fix them. People on all these different diets, chronically sick with all kinds of problems. Different diets everywhere, whether they're on the, one side of it or the other side of it, animal, non-animal, whatever it is. And they still suffer. Everybody's still dealing with their problems and symptoms, going to different doctors. Then the doctors blame the diet, like the vegan diet, or they'll blame this and that, and it's back and forth. You go to another doctor. It's great when you're young and you're not really sick and you're exercising every day. And you just got like little problems, like really little ones. But you take a mom who can't get out of bed with all she's got just to drive her kids to school because of crippling anxiety or severe fatigue with no answers abound. And she's trying the best keto diet possible, and she's trying the best plant-based diet possible, and she's trying the best animal diet possible, and she's gone to 10 doctors already, and 2 functional medicine doctors, and 2 neurologists, and 2 internists, and still can't get to where she needs to be. The keto diet's not going to fix it. The plant-based diet's not going to fix it. You need more than that. You need information, because you can do plant-based, high-fat, and still keep yourself sick. You can do keto, paleo, high-fat, animal protein, high-fat, and keep yourself sick, even if you're staying away from bad sugar and processed foods. Because the metals oxidize and feed pathogens. That's where we're going next. Fatty deposits all throughout the body discharge because they're attached to heavy metals that are oxidizing and rusting. So all of this just throws out a problem. It throws out a problem. As a result, the fatty deposit becomes highly toxic, and it can act as fuel for guess what? So those fatty deposits that hold all that corrosive rust and material, and it's holding on to it, becomes this powerful food in a bad way to viruses like Epstein-Barr, viruses like the shingles, human herpes viral 6, that's HHV 6, HHV 7, undiscovered HHV 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. Yeah, that's how many viruses are out there, and they're undiscovered cousins. And any other kind of pathogen that may even reach the brain, causing a myriad of problems and conditions undiagnosed. And so these viruses, they like to feed off of this discharge that heavy metals create. And remember, all this is happening while everybody's asleep. The food wars are going on. Everybody's throwing their fake science back and forth constantly. This study here, let's cite this, but there's really no information really in it in the end. Let's cite this, let's cite that. Let's keep on throwing these theories around that are funded and thumbed, basically a thumb on the scale. All interest groups behind it. Let's keep the war going. Let's the vegans keep on fighting the paleos, but no, everybody's sick though. Everybody's still sick. And so, because there's more information to be had, there's more information to be learned, let's keep the food wars going. Let's keep the science wars going. Hardcore conventional science in Harvard and Yale, hardcore science, all upset at the alternative sciences. So alternative science is all upset about them. They're all throwing all kinds of stuff around why everybody's sick, because everybody's too busy fighting each other. And then your metals, they're oxidizing, no one cares, no one gives a heck. And then our brains are still shrinking, our brains are still rotting, cells are being filled with metals, pathogens are creating Hashimoto's thyroiditis, rheumatoid arthritis, fibromyalgia, ME/CFS, Lyme disease, multiple sclerosis. That's just to name a few. Eczema, psoriasis, that's just to name a few. That's nothing. I can go 100 illnesses. There's lupus, there's all of them. And that's just a few of them. If you know a name of one, then yeah, it's that. And in the book, Celery Juice book, I cover almost 200 different symptoms and conditions in there with what's happening, what the cause is, and what celery juice is doing. Severe mental and physical deterioration, such as Alzheimer's, ALS, and Parkinson's, metals can cause that. Metals and pathogens. So this is all important information. It's critical to know. How does celery juice help? Celery juice's antioxidants help prevent toxic heavy metals from decaying by removing the fatty deposits from around the heavy metal deposit, and then coating the metals to discourage oxidation. That's what these antioxidants do. Sodium cluster salts attach to celery juice's antioxidants, diffusing toxic heavy metals' destructive charge. Toxic heavy metals have a destructive charge in the body, rendering these metals much less aggressive when you have the sodium cluster salt involved. So toxic heavy metals have a destructive charge. A sodium cluster salt attaches itself to the antioxidant in celery juice. Both of these two chemical compounds diffuse the mercury and the aluminum and the copper, the destructive charge that occurs from those, rendering them less aggressive. This isn't any information you could find out there. This is from the Celery Juice book. This is from my source. This is untampered with, this information. It's pure. It's clean. There's no agendas behind it. So this destructive charge is neutralized. Celery juice's special antioxidants can stop oxidation much more effectively. And that's the difference between those antioxidants and other ones. Let's talk about Alzheimer's. Let's talk about dementia. Let's talk about memory issues a little bit. These are diseases we all fear of falling into as we age. And medical research and science has no answers to them. They don't have any answers to them. I know that it's really good-hearted people in the alternative sciences are actually trying to get people to eat better with Alzheimer's and try to reverse some of the symptoms, and then they wave a flag like, oh my God, we did it. By golly, we did it. We did it. We can do something now. We can do a docuseries or a documentary on this, or maybe we can write a new book, or maybe whatever. We're getting people a little bit better by getting them off of processed foods. I mean, that's great. That's great. It still has nothing to do with what's really causing the problem, how to get the problem remedied, and not just being on the high-fat diet by just reducing processed foods, because that's not going to end the problem. It's not. We are just victims to these diseases that completely they strip us of the most precious memories, where we can't even recognize our own family anymore. Sure, and if we could reverse that a little bit by eating cleaner, it's a wonderful thing. But we got to do better than that with all these different illnesses, all of them. Because we can't just hang our hat on that, where we clean up some diets a little bit. We need this advanced information about how metals are rotting and rusting in the brain and in the body and in the tissue and in the liver and other places of the body, and how to get those metals out. That's what we need. And people don't even know metals are causing these problems out there. The industry doesn't even know. They don't even believe metals are really causing these problems with the brain. It's still where no one really knows. And that's a devastating place to be. Memory issues can occur in many different ways, whether in the form of trouble receiving long-term memories, losing short-term memories, or even fluctuations where short-term and long-term memory issues flip back and forth. It's important to know. The bottom line is we have to get the metals out so we're not dealing with problems. It's critical. You know, we're talking about more than those days when you're busy and you're just misplacing your belongings, your car keys, maybe even forgetting where you parked at a busy shopping center. Although celery juice helps with that kind of problem too, you know, it does way more than that. It does more than what we forget in a day where we have so many different tasks and so many things on our plate. When we talk about memory issues such as Alzheimer's disease or dementia, what we're talking about without realizing it is toxic heavy metals are inside the brain. That's what we're talking about without realizing it. That toxic heavy metals are sitting inside the brain. That's what's going on with Alzheimer's disease and dementia. The most common being mercury, the other one being aluminum. Close runners up, copper, nickel, cadmium, lead, and arsenic. And here's the thing, you guys, like this is really important to know right here. If you want to know a really good piece of information that nobody knows, everybody has a different volume, a different level of toxic heavy metals in the brain in different combinations, with some metals directly crossing each other's paths, which makes them interact, causing depression, anxiety, anxiousness, causing bipolar, causing mania, causing schizophrenia, causing just regular mild depression that's unexplainable, causing unexplainable sadness. Then we end up at a psychiatrist's office, we end up at a psych doctor's office, and they're just trying to like go through our childhood and stuff. when our sadness and depression is metals that are just basically fusing to each other. And it's amazing how it works. We end up taking some, psych meds that we need to just survive, because some of these doctors, they're like, I don't know what else to offer you, and the people, they need something to get them by. So I don't blame anybody for using anything they've had to use. But then the medications have more metals in them, and then they end up in the liver. And the medications and the metals end up in the liver. It's just not an easy path, and I completely understand. I mean, so many people struggle and suffer. It's unbelievable. Memory issues occur when those metals oxidize, when they collide, when they cross, when the paths are crossed. Oxidizing metals lead to a discharge, a very potent one. Think about a patch of metal rusting on an old car when cars were metal. I mean, so many young people listening to this podcast that, they just think cars aren't, they don't know what cars are. Cars are plastic. We drive around with plastic cars now. They're fiberglass and plastic. So they're not metal anymore. I mean, they're metal inside the frame and the parts, but the outside of the cars are just basically plastic shells, fiberglass shells. But think about the metal rusting on a car, becoming crusty and bubbling up, if you're old enough to know that. This is essentially what happens in the brain, but on a microscopic or nanoscopic scale, and even smaller than that. One major cause of oxidative reaction is a high level of fat in the bloodstream. So we pound down the fats and we get ourselves in trouble. Sure, though, if you're on a really bad diet and you're eating fried, greasy food with, rolls with butter on it and lots of, wheat gluten, and you're eating lots of dairy that's been, melted cheese on everything and fried in the oven and fried on the stove and baked in the oven or whatever, all these different delicious dishes at all these different fast food restaurants or whatever, and all this fare, and you're eating all that all this time, and you switch off of that and you're just eating almond butters in your shakes, almond butter in your shakes, and you're doing coconut oil, and you're doing lots of avocado, and you're doing free-range chicken, and you're doing, some different seeds and seed oils, and you're doing all these things, and your chia seeds, and you're doing the hemp seeds, you're doing all of this, hemp milk, almond milk, and you're just totally in the high-fat diet. You got rid of the processed foods, you got rid of the breads, you got rid of all of that. It's a huge step, and that's where the world's going, where it's going all there. All the diets are going to lead everybody to there, and we're still going to be sick. And then basically the diet makers to these diets are going to be like, well, you're just, that's just you. Something else you're doing. You're just doing something wrong if this diet didn't cure you. No, it's not at all. You can only go so far when you remove the processed foods, because you're still doing the high fats. You're just doing them in a healthier way. And it may not be enough for so many people who have real issues. The Epstein-Barr and the shingles, trigeminal neuralgia, plantar fasciitis, fibromyalgia, all the problems we get, and the reproductive problems women get, PCOS and fibroids and all that. That doesn't go away with that. We got to lower the fats. And then the metals don't oxidize too. I don't care. I mean, if your diet's filled with high-quality oils, nuts, and seeds, and avocados, and high-quality aged cheese, and organic eggs, and chicken, and really good fish, and grass-fed beef, it's all fat. All that was fat right there, under the guise or the hidden name of protein, all under the hidden name of protein. All somebody's going to think is there is protein, except for the word oils. But they're just going to think protein with every word I just said. Sure, there's no hydrogenated oils in cakes and cookies anymore in so many people's diets and donuts and other fried foods. Of course there isn't. In both the vegan side and both the animal protein side anymore. The resulting fat, though, in the bloodstream leads to this oxidative reaction with the heavy metals in the brain. That means all these other fats I'm talking about, the healthy ones, still oxidize metals. Whether anybody likes it or not, it's just the way it is. And all these fats thicken up the blood, lower the oxygen levels in the blood, and get you in trouble with pathogens like Epstein-Barr. And some of these fats feed Epstein-Barr, like the cheese and the eggs, especially the cheese and the eggs. They just feed the Epstein-Barr. keep you sick. That's why so many people have been just ring around the rosy in musical chairs. I'm not trying to cause all the fear around healthy fats. A little is okay. Too much can cause problems for people that are really struggling. Look, I've always been the person, as the messenger, as the person, the fighter for the chronically ill that have tried everything and have been there for them, watching their backs, or to make sure people don't get sick and get worse, who've never been sick before and end up getting sick and getting worse because they don't know this advanced information. And they fall prey to just the ring around the rosy, all of the same old thing going on. And no one's telling them we got to get the metals deep out of the tissue and how to do it the right way. None of that. I'm not trying to cause the fear around it. It's just basically your safety, your protecting you, making sure I look out for you. When these metals rust, they change shape and form. They rupture. They even grow. They expand. They run together. That's how it works inside our brains. Celery juice has an electrolyte source, the best one on the planet. Nothing can surpass it. It's helpful. It repairs damaged cells. It repairs damaged neurons. For one thing, celery juice is a complex blend of trace minerals. For one thing, I'll tell you right now, those trace minerals are powerful. They help restore neurotransmitter chemicals. This is critical information. The blend offers complete neurotransmitter chemicals. That's the blend in celery juice, the blend of electrolytes. It's critical because it helps to stop rusting metals from oxidizing and running off. That's how incredible it is. Neurotransmitters, it cleans them, gets them less dirty, makes them more useful, rehydrates them because of the electrolyte power in celery juice. For another thing celery juice does, it stops the oxidative runoff. It protects the neurons from the runoff, the glial cells in the brain. All of this is critical. I talk about this in the celery juice book. Way more. I cover way more in the celery juice book than I can cover in a radio show like this. And the thing is, you want to get these metals out. That's why I've always offered the heavy metal detox smoothie, which has always helped people. I like offering the celery juice as one of the medical medium tools, and then the heavy metal detox smoothie, the medical medium heavy metal detox smoothie. And that smoothie has the Vimergy products in it. I'm not sponsored by those guys. Nothing of the sort. This isn't an infomercial. I want you to know that, because that's what happens is every single podcast I've ever just heard or someone has talked to me about, they said there's like infomercials in everybody's podcast now. They're like nothing but like radio shows of infomercials left and right, like continuously, all through the podcasts. It's unbelievable. And this person said to me, you don't do that. And I know. I've heard that out there. I've heard that myself. I've listened to some podcasts. I've heard that. Now, Vimergy products are amazing because that's what I do to get my metals out. Is I put I put their spirulina in there, their barley grass juice powder, their wild blueberry powder. Then I get some fresh cilantro and throw it in there and a little bit of dulse. I put it in there with the frozen wild blueberries and some other fruit that I like. I blend it up to get the metals out. I drink my celery juice before it, like a half an hour before. Then I have my heavy metal detox smoothie, and that's what I do. If you don't know the Vimergy products, it's V as in Victor, Imergy, best spirulina there is to offer in the world today. That stuff even helps to bring back people's brain in so many ways. And you bring that into your diet, it helps. And that's what happens. I've had so many people come to me over the years and they're like, hey, AW. It's like, and I've had friends come to me, hey, AW, I just want to tell you, I've been on this really healthy diet, no processed foods, no junk foods, no fast foods, no anything. Whether, it's plant-based or vegan, or someone comes to me and whether it's, a paleo or a high-protein animal, and they'll just be like, I'm off all the processed foods, but I can't really get rid of everything altogether. I got these other symptoms I'm still plagued with. I got a little bit of this left and a little bit of that. It helped me at first, but I got a little bit of that. I'm like, you got to get the metals out. Where's your celery juice? Where's your celery juice? I should be 16 ounces celery juice every single day minimum. They bring it in. I go and bring in that heavy metal detox smoothie. And get that spirulina, the right kind from Vimergy, get the barley grass juice powder, get the wild blueberry powder, and put that in there. And all of a sudden, they're doing the heavy metal detox smoothie. It's one powerful medical medium tool that plugged into their belief system, whatever diet they tapped into that's processed food free. And they brought in the celery juice and they moved the needle. Those are two things right there. They also got rid of their chicken eggs. The chicken eggs. Meaning they got rid of eating eggs. And you don't have to get rid of your chickens. You just got rid of eating their eggs. I've known people that they harvest their own eggs right out of their backyard. And they have their own chickens. And I said, just give the eggs away. They're like, well, what do we do with all these eggs now? I go, those eggs, no matter how natural they are, how organic they are, they're going to feed Epstein-Barr. They're going to feed all your viruses. You're going to stay sick with chronic fatigue syndrome. They're going to keep the metals in the brain. They're going to keep the metals in your body because they're not going to let the metals out. Here's the thing. When you fill your bloodstream with high fat, constantly filling it with high fat, even if it's all healthy, you can't get the metals out anyway. It's too hard to get them out. That's why you need the heavy metal detox smoothie. You need some extra help. It's why you need the celery juice. And if you really want to go further with the Liver Rescue 369, the Liver Rescue book. Learn how to lower the fats. It's worth it. You're worth it. You are worth it. You are worth learning how to lower the fats and what foods to eat. And how to bring in a little bit more fruit and leafy greens and some sweet potatoes, more of those. And bring in more of these and get used to it a little bit so you can eat less of the fat, so you can thin out your blood a little bit to not give your heart so much of a struggle, and to make sure you get the metals out of tissue so they can actually leave. Make sure you're not oxidizing the toxic heavy metals anymore. Make sure the celery juice can go and reach the metals easy. Really easy. You can work on healing that way. And that's even more additional medical medium information that's powerful that can help you heal. I can only go so far. Only go so far in the sense where I can provide that information that's untampered with, that's pure. I can provide the information that's already healed thousands and hundreds of thousands of people, and even more than that, over through the last 3.5 decades. Information that's advanced and ahead of science and research, and ahead of the best alternative science we have now. I can only go so far as to give it to you, hand it to you, get you access of it, and hope that you actually try it. Because so many people have. We got to get the metals out, the mercury, the aluminum, the lead. We got to get it out of our brains, got to get it out of our liver, got to get it out of our organs, our intestinal tract, our colon, got to get it out of our reproductive system so we don't have difficulties with pregnancies. We got to get it out of the breast milk so you're not breastfeeding your baby with all the toxic heavy metals in there. That's why the heavy metal detox smoothie is amazing for women who are breastfeeding. To get the metals out. And the celery juice is incredible for women. It's for breastfeeding because you're cleaning the breast milk. You're cleaning it. So the baby's getting clean breast milk. I mean, doesn't get any better than that. Look, I wrote the Medical Medium Celery Juice book to help you understand the root cause of almost 200 symptoms and conditions and how celery juice can help protect you and recover you. I cover brain fog and ALS and depression, anxiety, OCD, PTSD, PTSS, addiction, and so much more in the book. So it's important to know, if you can't get a book, go to the library. If you can't get a book at Target or Barnes & Noble, Costco's has Costco's an easy place to get it because you can pick up a few things. You can pick up your celery at Costco's, and that's what I like to do. I go to Costco's, I pick up my celery. That's what I do. I pick up my wild blueberries for my heavy metal detox smoothie, my frozen wild blueberries. That's what I do. People always say, what do you do? What do you do? Well, I go to Costco's and I get my celery. And that's what I do. I get my frozen wild blueberries. Yeah. And so listen, the bottom line is, I care about you guys. I want you guys getting better. We can get the metals out. We can reverse anxiety, depression. We can reverse these conditions. We can get different neurological problems, twitches, spasms, tingles, numbness, aches, pains, blurriness, dizziness, balance issues, vertigo. We can get rid of neurological symptoms. We can get metals out, lower pathogens like Epstein-Barr. We can clean up our diets a little bit further. We can do all kinds of good stuff. But most importantly, just start with some celery juice then if it seems too much. Just do that. Let's do that. Let's start with celery juice. And we can just go there. I believe in you guys. I stand behind You 100% always have, always will. And I'm always proud of everybody for all that you're doing, everything from what you've gone through and your struggles, we've gone through, and how you're succeeding and each day just persevering. I love you guys. Take one step at a time. Take care. I'll see you next radio show. Love you much. Bless your heart. Bye.